Hello, I'm Tom Walski from Bentley Systems, and I'm here today in my role on the Water Distribution System Analysis History Committee, part of the Environmental and Water Resources Institute. What we're doing is recording some interviews with some major movers and shakers in the water distribution system industry over the years, and we want to record this so that people will have a little history background about where a lot of the developments have come from over time. Today we're fortunate to have as our interviewee Kevin Lansey from the University of Arizona, and we're going to ask him some questions about his work in water distribution system analysis. Today is May 20th, 2015, and we're doing this interview at the EWRI Conference in Austin, Texas. So as background, we're going to start Kevin off with a question about how he got into water distribution system modeling. So he actually was a forestry engineering student to start, so we'll see what made him see the light.
Go. Okay. So as a forest engineer, the market was not really great, as you might expect in forest engineering. So our background in that degree program was in a broadly civil, but applied to the forest environment. So we had some water things, transportation, and water did perk my interest. So when I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, I decided to go to pursue a master's and was offered a teaching assistant at Virginia Tech. And I started working with a fellow named Jim Wiggert when I arrived there in August. They were on the quarter system at the time. And at mid-year, G.V. Lognathan arrived from Purdue. He just took the teaching position. Unfortunately, he was a quarter late. Otherwise, I would have been G.V.'s first master student, because when I took his class, I was really interested and motivated in water resource systems analysis. So my thesis during that time was on a hydrology project, but I was really interested in doing some systems analysis work. GV was on my committee, and it was quite interesting, and his passing was really a blow. So after I finished my degree at Virginia Tech, I thought I was ready to go to work. I was married already, and decided to go to work in Philadelphia to work with the Corps of Engineers. And in Philadelphia, it was a district office, and they had designed and built one project in about 7 years before I got there. They were essentially a dredging agency to take care of the Delaware Bay. So my interest quickly waned in doing practical work with the Corps, in addition to commuting for about an hour a day down to Philadelphia. So I decided to go back to school again, and applied around. GV and my advisor Jim Wiggert suggested a couple places, including Purdue and University of Texas. And right around Thanksgiving, I had gotten calls from Larry Mays to invite me to come down to Austin, here in Austin, to pursue my PhD. And actually one of GV's advisors back in Purdue also gave me a call. Unfortunately, he was a little late, and I came down here to Texas to get my degree. There you go.
So then you got a chance to work with Larry Mays, and you guys did some really interesting work on, especially the area of reliability. You put out that book about reliability of water systems, which is still one of my favorite topics anyway, and I refer back to the book a good bit. So tell us about that project with Larry.
Okay. So just when I had arrived, Larry had gotten a National Science Foundation project, and one of the early ones on water distribution. I think there was only one or two others that NSF had put out on water distribution, and it was on looking at reliability of systems, which was really an interesting topic at the time. There, still like today, there wasn't a really great single definition, and we set out to try to define one of those. As well as looking at how we should change designs to look at from distribution system design from a reliability perspective. So he had a group of students in, some other fellow named Ning Duan was there, John Cullinan, who's heading up the Waterways Experiment Station, was part of our team. And we did my role was to start off developing an optimization tool to design water distribution systems. And we tried to develop a generic approach which can then be added on and looked at it and applied to a series of problems. So the basic tool or the basic approach was applied to minimum cut set method, looking at single pipe failures and multiple pipe failures. It was applied to looking at power outages and tank failures with Ning Duan, and looking at some availability indicators with John Cullinan.
Okay, so when you finished up that dissertation work, you went into teaching and started at Oklahoma State. Do you like teaching and research? Is that's sort of a lifetime goal that you achieved by doing that?
So yes, I got very interested in staying in academics once I found out what it was really like and what research was about, both at Virginia Tech and at down here at Austin. So I did want to get into teaching, and Oklahoma State gave me an opportunity to start off my career there. It was a smaller place and didn't have a lot of emphasis in water, so I quickly moved on to other things. But it was a great opportunity, and start off with some really good students at Stillwater.
Right. Then you moved on to the University of Arizona, where you've been for quite a while now. What year did you move there?
I arrived in 1990. September 1990.
So that's been 25 years now.
25. I just got my mugs for 25 years of being at a single institution. Yes, that's our gift.
So you're a PhD student here in Austin. I bet you had some interesting experiences, because it's a really good university, and Larry was not only was only one of the many good professors there. So how was your experience at UT?
We had a very interesting time here. David Maidment was here, who was still around here at the university. He taught the probability classes, and Ed Holly taught hydraulics. They were very different personalities. Larry was my main advisor, and he was certainly at the time almost a curmudgeon to start off with. So you heard stories about Larry getting on elevators and having arguments by the time he got on and by the time he got off the elevator 8 floors up. So he's been known to be a curmudgeon, but I had a great time with him. He was really supportive of me, and I was really happy he was my advisor. He taught me a lot of things about doing research and getting ahead. One of the things he sent me to in 1985 is actually when I met you, Tom, in Buffalo, when you organized the first Battle of the Network Models. And that was about a year and a half into my program, and we had just started getting the optimization tool I talked about together, and had some preliminary results that we put together. And I remember going to the Battle of the Network Models, and you were there, Uri Shamir was there, Ian Gulter, some of the old core of the initial guys who started out in water distribution systems, and I don't remember if you recall how packed that room was during that battle. People were standing around the side of the room, and here I was a year and a half into my PhD program, giving my first paper in a national audience, and Larry couldn't make it, so I was alone on getting up there. So I was pretty nervous. And actually, during my talk, I was stumbling along, and there was Uri in the first or second row, and I had completely forgot a term to use, and I was standing there bumbling for around 15 seconds, and Uri goes, under his breath, he goes, "It's the reduced gradient." So it clicked, and I started speaking again. So I always appreciate Uri for helping a young graduate student out, and that was a really interesting conference, and I got to meet Ian Gulter. Ian and I went out and had a great time going around that evening after I gave my talk, when I was a bit more relaxed. So it was a really good experience, and it was the first battle that you've seen over and over now. It was really a very good start to getting people thinking about distribution systems.
Okay, so now the shoe's on the other foot, and you're the professor. Do you have any interesting stories about some of the work that you guys have been doing at the University of Arizona?
Yeah, we've gotten about 5 or 6 years ago. We had a nice project also from a National Science Foundation on resilience and robustness of water supply systems, and did a lot of that work toward distribution systems. I was fortunate to have a couple of great PhD students join on that project, and both actually from Jay Kim's group that started Jay Kim's group in Korea University. Doosan Kang, who came over, and Dongwi Jung was a follow-up to that. Both Dusan came to the university as an unfunded student, and he continues to remind me that the first year I didn't pay him at all. And he came and started doing work right off the bat. So I quickly realized that he was a really good student and deserved support. And we got him some funding on that project. So when he went back and said Dong Wei was someone I should look at later, and Dong Wei came over and did a really great job. Between the two of them, carried the project. And now that they've both gone, I've been really struggling because it's been trying to keep that momentum going. They were really phenomenal students.
And a lot of your work has been on systems analysis and optimization. How have you seen that changing from just like a minimum cost optimization to now some of the work you're doing on the alternative futures and all that is a lot different than just a simple minimum cost?
It sure is, yeah. We've changed a lot, and moving from just minimum cost to looking at multi-objectives and looking at scenario planning is really a big change. The nicer thing is seeing people actually try to use it. I mean, you had some really scathing things back in the day saying that we haven't done anything with our research. We've just done non-practical stuff, and it's good to see some of that stuff has actually made it to industry with Bentley, with Optimatics, and those groups that are actually using the tools that we developed, but still using a lot of the least cost optimization. So I think now we have to move to this next generation of getting people to think beyond those single objective and short-term or fix very well-defined problems, and working with industry to be able to get that to move along.
Right, yes, because a lot of this stuff is based on knowing the demand, and we're doing some work on the fact that we really don't know what the future is going to be like.
Yeah, and understanding those demands, understanding what the implications of a good calibration and what that good calibration is. That first paper we put on calibration assessment, you remember, Tom, the first time we submitted that was, I think, 1993, and we went through back and forth, and I must admit it improved the paper a lot when it finally got published in 2001 after about 7 or 8 years of going back and forth. So it was a struggle, but looking ahead at not just what's happening today, but what's going to happen in the future and why you want to calibrate and develop systems, considering the uncertainties of demand, of roughness, and how it might affect design in the future is really important. It's good to see people starting to think about that more and more now.
And as part of your giving back to the profession, you organized the WDSA Conference in Tucson a few years back. How was that experience?
I always say I did my one conference in my lifetime. That's because organizing a conference is not a simple task, and trying to get that together. Fortunately, we have a great group of folks that come to those meetings and really support us. But actually, Dusan Kang was instrumental in trying to get the conference organized as far as the papers. It was I don't recommend people trying to do a conference on their own. They really need a good team to be able to do that, and so I've done my one. I was really pleased with the result. I thought we did some interesting things, and I think some of those have carried on as far as giving best papers and things like that. I think it's a useful recognition for both young and old, young researchers and older faculty to see that they're recognized.
What about people who have influenced you along the way? Of course, you mentioned Larry. What other, and GB, what other folks do you? I know you've done a report with Lyndall Ormsby about optimal operation, for example.
Yeah, Lyndall and I were actually, I met Lyndall also at the Battle of the Network Models. He had done some stuff with Dinshaw Contractor, who was actually at the University of Arizona. And we met, and we started off sort of together on these sorts of things. I visited him in Lexington at his 1989 conference, one of the early ones on KY pipe. And he's been a great guy. We have a paper or two together, so he's a great guy to work with, really productive guy who leads us along. I think you've pushed us, Tom, to think more practically. So I think that's a positive view. I think Uri Shamir certainly is someone I think of as when I think of people who's done great work, and I try to model myself after. So.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for taking the time to be interviewed and becoming part of history. So, thank you, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Tom.